Good evening. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. The rumbles from President Reagan's abrupt policy reversal in Beirut were muffled today by gunfire, much of it by the world's largest battleship, the New Jersey. Its big guns continued to pound Druze rebel positions even as a new day came to Lebanon, and as American shells were arriving, American people were leaving. Marines and more U.S. Embassy staffers beat a hasty exit from an increasingly hellish city. Larry Pintack and Alan Pizzi in Beirut begin our coverage.
It was the largest barrage by America's largest naval guns since Vietnam. The New Jersey fired on the Syrian-held mountains throughout the day, not to protect American lives, but to silence artillery shelling Christian East Beirut. The Marines were never directly threatened. The men were in their bunkers last night when the word came.
We all just got happy.
They were packing up today. At least 250 Marines have been flown to the ships since yesterday, part of an earlier plan to reduce numbers ashore. The final pullout will probably take several weeks. But the formal order to withdraw has not come. The Marine commander refuses to call what's happening a failure.
We have not given up hope, but it is an unsettled situation at the present time.
So unsettled that the British wasted no time getting out. By mid-morning, the 100-man unit and a 10-member American liaison team were rolling north to safety, abandoning their headquarters. As the British headed out, the Italians announced they will soon follow. The French insist their forces will stay. The Americans will leave behind the bunkers and barricades they've built since the bombing of their headquarters in October.
Nobody here doubts that once the Marines go, all this is going to fall into the hands of the Muslim militiamen. And as one Marine officer put it, there's no way the Lebanese army is ever going to get them out.
Government troops around the airport certainly aren't going to try. They've sided with the gunmen, increasing the danger to the Marines as long as they're ashore. Larry Pintack, CBS News, Beirut.
The best way in or out of West Beirut today was by helicopter. Several clattered into a sealed-off area along the seafront to evacuate about 50 Americans. They were mainly contract workers, considered non-essential personnel. The embassy issued a statement saying no general evacuation of Americans had been ordered, and that the U.S. government was not providing transportation inside Lebanon or to anyone wishing to leave. There was also a phone number to get on an evacuation list, but the embassy phones rarely seem to work, and few people can get into the embassy to ask questions. Marines screen everyone who approaches. They are assisted by Druze Muslim militiamen, who run the West Beirut seafront now that the Lebanese army has been driven out. Ironically, Druze militias also operate in some of the areas shelled by the New Jersey, but relations at the checkpoint are cordial. The scaling down of personnel is due to the uncertain security situation. Fighting continued along the Green Line dividing East and West Beirut, and military sources said the first salvo from the New Jersey was answered by a barrage of 100 shells a minute on East Beirut from the New Jersey's target area. Much of the Muslim west side was calm, however. The gunmen are still flushed with victory, perhaps because, as one newspaper put it, they haven't figured out what they must do with West Beirut now that they have it. And that is why people want to leave. Alan Pizzi, CBS News, Beirut.
The Israeli government insisted today that its 30,000 troops in southern Lebanon would not be affected by the U.S. Marine pullout, that Israel's policy of securing its own northern border from guerrilla attacks remains unchanged. In Jerusalem, Prime Minister Shamir met with his cabinet to discuss the new developments in Beirut and to report on an earlier meeting with U.S. Ambassador Samuel Lewis. Israeli sources said, meanwhile, that the Shamir government had denied Lebanese President Gemayel's requests for help. With the sudden pullback of the American military presence in Beirut, so too will go the United States peacekeeping role. Pentagon correspondent David Martin has more about that.
When the 16-inch guns of the New Jersey fired 250 rounds into Syrian-held territory today, its 2,000-pound shells were making the same point Defense Secretary Weinberger made with words.
You can't be very effective on the ground in that kind of situation. You can be a great deal more effective in an offshore position, and that's essentially what we're doing. It's not really a pullout at all. It's a redeployment to a place where you can be more effective.
There were also 200 rounds of 5-inch shells, all unleashed on Druze gun positions and command bunkers after the U.S. Embassy and the ambassador's residence came under fire. The day-long barrage marked the end of the American peacekeeping role and the start of direct American military support for the Lebanese government, a policy not without its critics.
They're just bombing away at any Syrian that happens to be within Lebanon. I'm frightened of a policy of that type.
Not even the strongest supporters of the new policy claim it will be risk-free.
I see it as a well-thought-out policy in a most difficult situation, and I think that this is a worthy cause. It is difficult. It is fraught with danger.
1,600 Marines at Beirut Airport could be out within 24 hours if they had to, but the plan being drawn up calls for a more gradual withdrawal. Pentagon officials say it could take months to get all the Marines out, depending on how rapidly the Lebanese army can take over their positions. With unintended irony, the Pentagon today released a report listing all the actions taken to improve Marine security since the October 23rd bombing, the event which led to this latest decision to remove the Marines from the airport. The report also revealed that the officers in charge of the Marine compound will be censured but not punished for the lapses in security which permitted the October bombing. That will probably put an end to the career of Colonel Timothy Garrity, commander of the Marines at the airport. But for Lieutenant Colonel Howard Gerlach, the action is meaningless. He remains paralyzed from the neck down as a result of the injuries he suffered in the blast. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
In the wake of President Reagan's policy about-face, the Soviet Union moved quickly today to coordinate what one Moscow source called Soviet-Syrian military policy. The Kremlin announced that a member of its ruling Politburo would make a brief working visit to Damascus next week. Moscow has a great deal at stake with Syria: military aid, political influence, and 5,000 military technicians based there.
Like to try Total?
Oh, no, we grew up on Raisin Bran. Every morning.
Hope you're hungry, because you'll have to eat 4 bowls of Raisin Bran to get the vitamin nutrition in 1 bowl of Total.
4 bowls? Every morning?
There's 100% of a day's worth of 9 vitamins and iron in Total, 25 in Raisin Bran, so it takes 4 bowls to equal Total's vitamin nutrition.
Whole wheat.
What about your Raisin Bran?
We're not that hungry.
Total, 1 bowl, 100%.
This boy and girl are the same age, but statistics show that the girl should live 7 years longer. Because she's a better risk, she'll pay lower life insurance premiums for the same coverage. That's how all insurance works. The lower the risk, the lower the premium. Basing premiums on risk makes it possible to provide insurance for everyone at a fair price. America's life and health insurance companies, a growing commitment to America's life and health.
The turnabout of President Reagan's policy in Lebanon received strong approval today from Syrian-backed Druze rebel leader Walid Jumblat. In a Damascus interview with CBS News correspondent Martha Teichner, Jumblat called it a wise decision to avoid more casualties among the Marines. But he called increased U.S. shelling of his positions, quote, a dangerous decision. Jumblat warned that if the United States does not want Lebanon to just disappear, it will have to open negotiations with his rebel movement. Right now, that does not appear likely, as President Reagan and his aides tried to put the best light on a bad situation. We have 2 reports, beginning with Bob Simon.
It was from the start a question of perception. The Marines sailed into Beirut on a wave of optimism. They were peacemakers, that was their mandate. But to the Lebanese, they were one more faction in a land of factions. Amal, Maronites, Marabatoon, now Marines, one more gang on the block. When 241 Americans died last October, it was a national tragedy for Americans. For Lebanese, it was sadness as usual, a massacre, one among many, nothing new. It was a question of perception. The Reagan administration saw Lebanon as one more battleground in the East-West confrontation. The Druze who fired on the Marines were surrogates of the Syrians who were surrogates of the Soviets. But Lebanese would say there are no surrogates in the Middle East, only tribes who'd been battling each other for centuries in one of the world's oldest civil wars. The Christian phalangists led by the Gemayel family were one of those tribes. When the Israelis invaded Lebanon, they saw to it that Bashir Gemayel became president. After his assassination, the Americans saw to it that brother Amin kept the presidency. That became the mission of the Marines, to protect what Washington called Lebanese legitimacy and sovereignty. But the Israelis occupied the south of the country, the Syrians the north and the east. The Druze Muslims took the mountains overlooking Beirut. The Shiite Muslims dominated the southern suburbs. Gemayel was never really more than mayor of Beirut. And now he's left with nothing but the ancient Christian enclave in the east. His enemies would like the Marines to take him along when they leave.
It's best for them to move out, and if they can move with them this dictator, this damn dictator called Gemayel, it would be better for everybody, especially for the Lebanese people.
If Gemayel ever had a chance to become a real president of Lebanon, he lost it forever when he signed an accord with Israel, an accord brokered by the Reagan administration. To compensate, Washington sent in Green Berets to train the Army of Lebanon.
Everything was good except for one thing. You lost a man, okay?
It sent in millions of dollars worth of materiel. It gave the Army everything except a reason to fight. The officers were Christian mostly, the enlisted men Muslim. They would follow some orders, they would not kill their brothers. The Army didn't lose, it evaporated. The winners, of course, are the Syrians. After losing 3 wars, President Assad has emerged as the power broker of the Arab world.
I think the Syrians become stronger. I think they are stronger militarily and politically. I think the Soviets see the first real opportunity in years to establish a strong beachhead, if you will, politically in the Middle East.
Now the Marines are leaving, and Syria seems destined to control Lebanon as it has so often in the past. The Marines didn't create the problem in Lebanon. They certainly didn't solve it. To the Lebanese, they were, at best, irrelevant. Bob Simon, CBS News, New York.
The president's spokesman insisted today that the Marine redeployment doesn't mean decreased U.S. support for the government of Lebanon. Deputy Press Secretary Larry Speaks said the Marines' mission and goal in Lebanon are unchanged, that none of the U.S. servicemen had died in vain, and that the administration still hopes to stabilize the Gemayel government. But on Capitol Hill, there didn't seem to be much concern about the government of Lebanon. Some members of Congress reportedly hissed and booed when a State Department briefer told them the withdrawal will take a total of 4 months.
You know, the British got out of Dunkirk a lot faster than 4 months. I don't see why we can't get the Marines back on the ships a lot faster than that.
The president, vacationing at his Santa Barbara ranch, had nothing more to say about it all today, but critics, including some of his most stalwart Republican supporters, say that he hasn't gone far enough.
Sometimes it's always darkest before the dawn, and if there's gonna be some sort of consensus government developed, it'll have to happen in the next few days. And in the next few days, then we'll know whether there's a chance or not.
In fact, administration officials are describing it as a last chance for Gemayel to form a more broadly based government. And they're privately skeptical that he can do it, given Syria's mood. And that is why, with no one else waiting in the wings, the White House acted so quickly as the situation in Lebanon deteriorated. Bill Plant, CBS News, with the president in Santa Barbara.
As American troops are being pulled out of Lebanon, more are heading for Honduras. The Pentagon announced late today that 1,000 more U.S. servicemen will be sent to Honduras to conduct, quote, peacetime aerial reconnaissance missions. These troops are in addition to the 850 who will remain in Honduras after today's official ending of the Big Pine 2 military exercises. The Pentagon insists that the aerial missions will not violate Nicaraguan airspace.
If you're just looking for a small car, your choice is very large. But if you're looking for a small car with advanced front-wheel drive engineering, your choice is more limited. And if you're looking for a small car that's also very sporty and maneuverable, you'll find it reassuring to look at this one. Skyhawk, the first car to succeed at being both small and Buick at the same time.
Wouldn't you really rather have a Buick?
The finer things. Happily, some are affordable, like Grey Poupon Dijon mustard. Grey Poupon has the classic quality of the original French Dijon recipe created centuries ago. A distinctively delicious taste for meats, salad dressings, and sauces. So enjoy one of life's finer pleasures.
Pardon, monsieur, est-ce que vous avez du Grey Poupon?
Mais bien sûr. Grey Poupon, one of life's finer pleasures.
These developments today on the burgeoning federal budget deficit and how to reduce it. The first meeting of the bipartisan group President Reagan asked to find some ways today agreed on one thing: they won't try to find any way to do it at the expense of the Social Security program. On Capitol Hill, Congress's chief economist, Rudolph Penner, said Social Security plus just 3 other budget items, the military, Medicare, and the interest on the national debt, these items alone will cost almost all the government would take in from taxes by 1989. And the Congressional Budget Office is out today with 138 ways to reduce the budget, ranging from the idea of freezing defense spending levels to a 1% national sales tax. Cleveland Steelworkers Union officials today said they have just begun to fight against foreign imports. That vow came one day after the city's voters approved a $7.5 million government loan for a new steel mill. The union charged the mill will process foreign steel and hire non-union workers. Police helicopters overhead, police and civilian patrols on foot. It's happening today in one of the most famous cities in the United States. And Karen Stone reports the purpose is to see that girls can get to and from school in safety. No more than that, just safety.
When Tiffany Wright goes to high school each morning, her mother drives her door to door because Tiffany is scared.
I don't want to get in trouble or get hurt or anything coming to school.
There have been nearly 50 sexual attacks against girls in the Detroit city system since the beginning of this school year, the most serious against a student at Tiffany's high school. Several weeks ago, 16-year-old Michelle Jackson was raped and murdered. Her body found in an abandoned building near her school bus stop. The public outcry over her death and the other rape cases has mobilized city officials to increase security for the district's 200,000 students.
If there's one person raped in a year, that's too many. That's too many.
Early this morning, police helicopters began hovering over routes used by students walking and riding to school. Extra police and volunteers are patrolling the streets. And in many schools these days, rape prevention is a special part of the curriculum. Police have made arrests in 23 of the 50 attacks against students. In Tiffany Wright's school, police and parent volunteers are patrolling the halls, and students are encouraged to travel in groups. Tiffany says she feels safer riding to school with her mother.
It can happen to me or to my daughter, anybody's daughter. No one shouldn't take the attitude that it can't happen to them.
Karen Stone, CBS News, Detroit.
Robert Young.
Look closely at this yellow tablet. It's safety coated. If you have arthritis pain like Mary here, this could really help you. This is new safety coated APF, arthritis pain formula. It's safety coated aspirin. Outside, a yellow safety coating protects aspirin sensitive stomachs. Inside, maximum strength aspirin relieves minor pain for hours.
So I can take aspirin without all that stomach upset.
You can too, with new safety coated APF, arthritis pain formula.
Inflexible Express.
Hi, can you get a package to Yugoslavia?
Absolutely, positively not.
How about Taiwan or Peru?
Absolutely, positively not.
Well, Purelator Courier can. We're more flexible than a certain express company.
We now serve over 100 countries, so the courier that delivers the most packages overnight in North America
now gets them to even more of the places you want. Call Purelator Courier. You want it, you got it. Worldwide.
An explosion today killed 5 workers at a lead extracting plant in the town of Wallkill, about 5 miles from Middletown, New York. Officials said the blast occurred when workers used a propane torch to defrost a pipe that was part of a truck weighing scale's hydraulic system. 5 other workers at the Revere smelting and refining plant were treated for emotional shock. The shuttle astronauts took some downtime up there today, putting their $10 million rocket suits up on the rack for servicing. They'll put them back on tomorrow for another round of wonder walking, tetherless walking in space. Not to be outdone, 3 Soviet cosmonauts were sent up today to be the latest occupants of the Salyut 7 space lab. All told, today in space, a new world's record for being out of this world. 8 people in space at once. The 12-year-old Houston boy known only as David is the longest surviving victim of congenital severe immune deficiency. Because he is defenseless against disease, he has lived his life in a plastic bubble. He underwent a bone marrow transplant in October to correct the condition. Doctors say test results of that transplant are still pending. Now David who never before has been sick, is suffering a high fever and other symptoms. To treat that illness, doctors yesterday removed him from his plastic bubble for the first time and transferred him to a sterile hospital room. And yesterday, for the first time in his life, David was touched and kissed by his mother.
Expectations. They come with every investment. Expectations about yield and risk, expectations short-term and long-term. How realistic these expectations are will ultimately determine how satisfied you'll be. Which is why we at Shearson American Express recommend you invest your time before you invest your money. Shearson American Express and the serious investor. Minds over money.
This woman has had diabetes for years.
Mrs. Johnson?
So there's a chance her daughter may also develop it. Diabetes is a serious illness, but it can be controlled.
How have you been feeling?
Kind of tired.
Are you often thirsty?
Yes.
11 million Americans have diabetes, maybe even you, especially if you're over 40 and overweight. So check with your doctor. This message was brought to you by Pfizer Pharmaceuticals.
I'll know soon, Mom.
Pfizer, one of your partners in health care.
If you're pouring Kellogg's Corn Flakes, you've earned a special place on the front of America's favorite cereal. Sit down to a familiar face, the face of a Kellogg Corn Flake lover, the face of America too. When you sit down to America's favorite cereal, the face on the package is you. So sit down to a familiar face.
Tonight, the third and final CBS News special report on television and the candidates. Tonight, Bob Schieffer looks at the latest crop of presidential campaign ads, why a lot of people don't think they're new and improved, and maybe even a disservice in this age of electronic politics.
The campaign commercials came long before television.
There's your doctor.
Franklin Roosevelt was running this one in movie houses in the 30s.
And lick this old depression.
From Abilene.
In 52, Eisenhower mounted the first TV ad campaign.
General, if war comes, is this country really ready? It is not.
When Ike's opponent, Adlai Stevenson, saw that, he came up with a spin-off that had an Ozzie and Harriet sitcom air about it.
Well, what do they write about mostly, Dan? Well, one thing that seems to...
With that, the race was on TV.
In your heart, you know he's right.
This year's political candidates will spend $180 million on television, more than 30 times what they spent in Eisenhower's day.
In these days, to be on television is to be a real candidate. In the absence of a television campaign, you're not real.
Most serious candidates for major offices this year will spend at least half their campaign funds on TV ads. Commercials are so crucial that when Alan Cranston's people turned out a new batch, they did what Detroit does when it unveils the new cars. They called a press conference.
It ran in the middle of McHale's Navy at 12:45.
These are candidate Gary Hart's people doing just what a dog food maker would do before putting new ads on television. They are market testing their commercials to get reaction from a small voter cross-section.
So Gary Hart seems to have more charisma, okay?
Can commercials help that much? Ask anyone who used to own some.
Spend a few $1 million on television advertising, 30-second commercials, just like a bar of soap, and that candidate will rise dramatically in the polls.
Is that necessarily good? Ask a man who used to make a lot of them.
I think it's sick.
Strong words from Charles Guggenheim, a founding father of the campaign ad industry.
What has Richard Nixon ever done for me?
After watching ads like this over the years and being involved in 92 campaigns himself, Guggenheim is now disillusioned with the process, feeling campaigns are becoming more superficial and much dirtier.
It's much easier in 30 and 60 seconds to destroy and to pull down than it is to build. It now has become sort of a noise, negative noise out there.
Mr. Mondale is trying to please too many people.
He's trying to be everything for everybody.
If I'm elected president, it won't be because I was a vice president or an astronaut.
Here in New Hampshire, the noise, negative and otherwise, is already well underway because this is not just a race among Mondale and Glenn and the names you know. It's also a battle of the TV gurus. Among them, Mondale's man Roy Spence, Glenn's image maker David Sawyer, Neil Oxman, who honchos the Cranston ads, and Ray Strother, who does likewise for Gary Hart. The image makers argue they've taken politics out of the smoke-filled rooms and directly to the people on TV.
There have been studies that show that people get more information about where the candidates stand from television commercials than they do from the reporting of a campaign.
Even so, some ad men complain TV mudslinging is getting so bad it's giving advertising a bad name.
Nobody controls what the candidate can put on the air, and somebody should have some kind of a say on that.
We can cut the amount of this self-serving advertising.
Even the candidates concede there's a problem. Some reformers say the British have a better way. Paid commercials are banned, but candidates are given longer periods of free time on TV to make their cases. Reformers also concede there's no real chance of that happening here or any other real reforms. So the outlook is for a lot more of the same.
The more your opponent spends, then the more you have to spend. And more money spent means that the government process is being turned into a fish market.
You can't get too cynical about a bar of soap, but you can get cynical when someone begins to tamper in a way you don't respect with the democratic process.
I'm sort of a farm kid.
To be sure, the process has come full circle because the latest is, you guessed it, commercials about commercials.
Can you believe some of my opponent's commercials?
Bob Schieffer, CBS News, Manchester, New Hampshire.
And that's the CBS Evening News for this Wednesday. Dan Rather reporting from New York. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
The apple growers of Washington State present the Washington Apple Core. Oh, the crisp, altogether delightful sound of a Washington apple. A snack that looks good, tastes good. Wouldn't a Washington apple taste good right now?
Good night. Good night.
I had fun.
It's really cold.
I could make some coffee.
Times like these are made for taster's choice.
The best tasting coffee is the freshest tasting coffee. And every cup of Taster's Choice is fresh because it's freeze-dried fresh. Taster's Choice. Fresh taste for your choice coffee times.
When General Electric was choosing a charge card to issue to their executives, they needed one honored at hotels, restaurants, and airlines worldwide. One that gave their executives financial freedom with its flexible spending limit. One that's now backed by a financial leader, Citicorp. The card they chose to plug into was the Diners Club card. So apply for one, because the bright idea that works for the executives at GE will work for you. Citicorp Diners Club, when you mean business.
Brighten your morning. Bill Curtis and Diane Sawyer bring you the news you need and the special reports you want. Make your morning with the CBS Morning News.
This is CBS.